Hey guys, it's Mel. Welcome to my channel. So in today's video I am going to do an ebook and audiobook haul. So a lot of the books that I have been reading recently I have been reading on my ebook, and I have also been listening to quite a few audiobooks. So I thought that I would do a haul for you guys and talk about some of the books that I have purchased on those two different reading platforms. I won't talk about some of the books that I've been reading that I've borrowed on Overdrive from my library on my e-reader. They're not purchases, and also quite a lot of the books on my e-reader I have actually talked about in a variety of different wrap-ups in the last month or so. So I won't probably go into a huge amount of detail about any of the books because I've been talking about quite a few of them in my various different wrap-ups, like I said, but I'll just let you know what they are. I will start with my e-reader. So the first two books that I want to show you are White Fragility and White Rage. I bought these two books on my e-reader because I wanted to go in the Blackout buddy read, which is a buddy read that Shae from Books With Shae has put together. It was for a particular week in June, the second week of June. I've decided to read it as part of the entire reading month in June because I don't tend to find that I absorb enough information if I'm trying to read a non-fiction book particularly quickly, so I like to sort of slow down and read a chapter here and there so that I can help to process it a bit more. So I bought those two books as part of that Blackout buddy read, and I wanted to buy them on my e-reader because I knew that I would get them quickly on the e-reader. I could just download them, whereas if I ordered them on Amazon or at a local bookstore or anything like that, then they would take a while. Potentially I would not get them in June, so that is why I ordered them on the e-reader. So White Fragility is a book written by Robin DiAngelo, who is a sociologist and anthropologist who talks about systemic racism and racial inequality within America from a white woman's perspective. She is a white woman, so she talks about it from the perspective of white privilege. I'm finding that it is a very interesting book. I feel like I'm getting a lot out of it. I know that there was a lot of outcry on Twitter not long ago because of some of the words that were used in the book and the fact that she is a white woman talking about race. I am not going to go into any justification or thoughts or feelings or anything like that around those things in this video. I will touch on those when I come to do a wrap up for June, but I will talk more in depth about that and discuss my thoughts when that happens. So please don't think that I am ignoring it or that I'm unaware of it. I am definitely aware of it. I'm definitely not ignoring it. However, this is very much probably a part of my white privilege, but I am choosing to read it, to continue with it, because I personally find that I am getting something out of it and I feel that it is educating me, so that's all I'm going to say about that. Then there was White Rage, which is a book written by Carol Anderson. Carol Anderson is a Black American woman, so it is written from the perspective of a Black American woman. I haven't started this one, so I'm not 100% sure exactly what the thrust of this book is, but I imagine that it is a relatively similar idea behind what she is talking about as White Fragility, except that it comes from a Black perspective, which will be very interesting for me to read, so I'm looking forward to reading that. Alright, so those were two books that I purchased specifically for that readathon. Then I also, this is not going in any audio, I also purchased The Reason I Jump, One Boy's Voice from the Silence of Autism, which was written by Naoki Higashida, who is a 13-year-old boy who has autism spectrum disorder, and he answered a series of questions that have been directed at him in the past about his autism spectrum disorder, and he answered those as to why these things happen or why he does these things or what have you. I found this really very interesting. Again, I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail because I have talked about this in my mental health wrap-up, which I will link in the description. I found it really interesting. I found it really eye-opening, and I'm really glad that I read it. If you work with children who are on the autism spectrum disorder, or you have children who are on the autism spectrum disorder, or just want to know more about that, then I suggest you go and read the book. It's very accessible and very interesting. So that was that one. And now I'm going to show you This Is How You Lose the Time War by Max Gladstone and Emil El-Notar. Again, I'm not going into any detail because I already spoke about this at length in the Because We Can readathon wrap-up, so find that link in the description too. I still don't really know how I feel about this book. Very odd. Anyway, the basic, well, I say basic, it's not basic at all. The plot, I still don't even know if I really entirely know how to talk about this book. It is science fiction, it is time travel, it is female-female romance, it is very interesting. If any of those things appeal to you, then I suggest you go and read them. Read it, I should say. But yes, that is another ebook purchase of mine. Going all the way back to the beginning of this year, I purchased the Folk of the Air trilogy on my e-reader as well. So they were, or are, The Cruel Prince, The Wicked King, and The Queen of Nothing. These are books that I have again spoken about at length in a variety of different places, and also a lot of people have talked about on BookTube. So again, I won't go into a huge amount of detail, but it's young adult fiction. It is a story about a human girl who is taken with her twin sister and her half-sister, who is half fairy and half human, into the fairy world, made to live in the fairy world, and it's about her trying to figure out how to live in the fairy world. There's lots of action, there's lots of romance, there's hate to love, there's all sorts of intrigue, political intrigue, and all that sort of thing. It's, like I said, young adult. It's really fun to read. I really enjoyed it. Definitely recommend. Next up is The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary. This is a book that I specifically downloaded for the Contemporary-athon readathon, which happened in February. I believe there's another one coming up later this year. I will link Natasha, Julie, and Chelsea's channels in the description below. They are the three hosts of the Contemporary-athon. So I purchased The Flat Share for that readathon because I had heard mostly Chelsea, although a variety of other booktubers, talking about how fantastic it was, and it sounded really interesting, and I thought that it sounded like something I would like. So I purchased it and then read it during Contemporary-athon. I did really enjoy it. I thought that it was really well written, really interesting. The premise of the book is that Tiffy falls into a difficult financial situation, and she finds a flat share ad for an incredibly cheap flat share, and so she decides to have a look at it. And it's incredibly cheap because she is sharing the flat and the bedroom and the bed with the guy who is she's subletting off, because he works at night and she works during the day. So the idea is that they won't meet, except that of course at some point throughout the book they do meet and they form a friendship, blossoms into romance, and so on. But it's really great, really well written, definitely recommend. So now we come to 2 books that I downloaded and have not actually read yet. So the first of these is A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmerer. I downloaded this because I've been hearing so much buzz on BookTube about how amazing it was, and it sounded like something I'd really enjoy. So for those people that don't know, it is a YA fantasy retelling of Beauty and the Beast, and I've heard that it has fantastic disability rep in it and that it's just amazing, and so I downloaded it because I thought it sounded interesting. Haven't got around to it yet, but I am planning on reading it at some point and I'm really excited to do so. And then we have The Miseducation of Cameron Post by Emily Danforth. So this is a book that I heard Emma from Drinking by Myself talking about. I will link her channel in the description below, and it sounded really, really interesting, and I thought that it sounded like something I'd really love to read, which again I haven't got around to yet, but I will at some point. It is about Cameron, who is just a teenager discovering her sexuality, and she is sent to one of those camps that I think they mostly only have them in the States, I'm not sure, but the re-education camps where they send you to essentially reprogram you so that you will not be gay anymore. And it's a book about that and her experiences there and finding herself, etc. That's about as much as I know about it. It sounds really interesting. Emma said that it was fantastic. All the books that I have read of that Emma has also read, I have had very similar opinions to her. She reads quite differently from me, but we do have some crossovers, so it sounded great and I thought that I would give it a go. So that was all of the books that I have purchased on my e-reader, and now I will talk about the audiobooks that I have purchased, and for that I need my phone. So quite a few of these I haven't actually read yet, or I am in the middle of reading, but anyway, I'll just talk about them. Again, there is no particular order. So the first one that I have here is This Is How You Lose the Time War, because I started reading it on the e-reader and was finding it incredibly hard to follow, so I thought that perhaps listening to it might be better, and it was, so that's that one. And then I downloaded 2 short story collections. They are actually Audible's short story collections. They are, the first one is Scowled, well they're both called Scowled. There is one that is a mystery collection and one that is a kind of magical realism contemporary sort of collection. I listened to a couple of different stories on those two, from those 2 collections, and they were really, really interesting and I really enjoyed them. I am not really a person that reads short stories, and I just thought that I would give it a go. I thought that maybe audiobook might be the way to go, and yeah, so far it's worked out reasonably well. I don't really know much about all of the different stories, but like I said, they're curated into these 2 mystery and then sort of magical realism books, so we'll see. And then I downloaded A Short History of Nearly Everything by Bill Bryson. So Bill Bryson is an he's an English author who writes non-fiction books that are sort of based on his experiences but also trying to be scientific or researched in some way. Some of them are travel books, and I've read a few of his. I really enjoyed them, so I found this one for free, so I thought that I would listen to it. Next up is Dark Emu by Bruce Pascoe. I don't really know much about this book, even though it is all over the place in Australia at the moment. I think it's a memoir. It's supposed to be amazing. It's won a whole bunch of different awards, and I'm super excited to get to it. Then we have The Mercies by Kieran Millwood Hargrave. So this one is a book that I chose to read for the Eurovision readathon because it is set in Norway. It is a historical fiction, and I did listen to it during Eurovision-a-thon, so if you want to know more of my thoughts, then I will link my Eurovision-a-thon wrap-up in the description below, where I talk about that in a lot of detail, or more detail. And yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was really well written. I thought it was really well narrated. I think that it's a great book. Like I said, it's historical fiction. It is set in Norway during roughly the 1600s. It has a female-female romance, and yeah, it's just great. The next 2 I have talked about in other wrap-ups. I'm not certain whether I have put them in hauls at all, so I'm just going to mention them very briefly. And one is On Lunar Time by Amber Crowley, and the other is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I will link the videos where I talk about both of those books in the description below. Then we come to Your Own Kind of Girl by Claire Bowditch. Now, Claire Bowditch is an Australian author, author now, an Australian singer, songwriter and actress, and she is amazing. As many of you probably know, I have been doing a audiobook journey where I've been sort of trying to figure out how I feel about various different audiobooks and learning how to like audiobooks, and memoirs were something that I thought might potentially be enjoyable via audiobook, because I think my main issue with audiobooks so far has been the narrators. I feel awful saying that because that's like saying you have a bad voice. But anyway, the narrators, and I thought that possibly listening to audiobooks of memoirs that were narrated by the author might actually be really interesting, and might potentially solve some of my problems with the narrators. So that is why I downloaded that. Like I said, it's a memoir. It's about Claire Bowditch's experiences as being an actress and a singer-songwriter. So I'm looking forward to that because she's a fantastic person, singer-songwriter, actress. That brings me to my next memoir, which is Trevor Noah's Born a Crime, and that is about his experience being born to a white father and a black mother in South Africa in the 80s, which was completely taboo and therefore actually literally a crime. It's just amazing. I'm about halfway through. I really, really like it. As I said, it's just fantastic. I love Trevor Noah as a comedian, and I just think he is a great storyteller as well. Then we have The Widow by Fiona Barton, and I think this is a thriller. It was suggested to me by Audible. Really don't know much about it other than that. So I guess you'll find out when I do. That's it for the video today. If you have anything you want to talk to me about, please do so in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next time.